life and to go to a very cruel death on the cross so that we could have a relationship with you. God, give us wisdom and discernment and favor for the days ahead, God, because they're evil. We pray that you give us wisdom and discernment on how to react and how to respond in a way that really honors and glorifies your name. Bless this evening and our guests. Thanks for bringing them here, and thanks for the food that you've given. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Bob, would you come please these pledges to the imaginary flags? Y'all can all visualize the flag. Peter, would you like a mic? I'll throw your reporter here. Oh, here's a flag.
Okay, let's do the pledge to the American flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now to the great nation of Texas.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. As y'all can tell, things are a little different tonight. I would like to say get used to this, but if you look around, we're at capacity, and this is not going to be as large as our crowds. If I see that we're going to have small crowds, we could possibly come in here. But in most cases, our crowds fill up at least 2/3 of the patio. Yeah, it's hot out there. How many of you born and raised Texans? It's not all that hot. I remember as a kid, we tried frying eggs on the sidewalk. It was 113 degrees. No sweat, people.
No AC.
No, we didn't have AC. We went to school and there was no air conditioner. In fact, there were no fans. We all had fans on for higher school districts. We were in Houston Independent School District. We didn't have them. We had windows that opened. True. Anyway, so I mean, it could be hotter for those who aren't safe. They'll find out. Those who are, just take my word for it. I read the book and told me all about it. So anyway, welcome night. How many are first timers here tonight? It's about time. Those of you who have been here before, we're glad that you're back. We're probably the only really active Tea Party left in these parts. There are some smaller groups that have Tea Party in their name, but they don't meet as often as we do and as regularly, and they're not anywhere near actively as involved as our group. So welcome aboard. Hopefully you came here to work. Those of you who are precinct chairs, we know that you came here to work or you wouldn't be here. But we actually have more to do than what a lot of precinct chairs are doing. Not everybody's precinct chair works like some of these in here. Is that not right, Gwen? We got some really good hard workers. We had some that walked 2 or 3 precincts, not just their own, but they walked somebody else's that couldn't walk for some reason or the other. So we have some good hard workers here, and we need to keep it that way. That's how we keep Montgomery County red. And if they're gonna start it purple or blue, they're gonna have to do it on our cold dead hands, because we're not going down easily. Anyway, Texas First is here tonight to talk to us about the hand recount show. And they're busy trying to set up too, because normally we have everything set up on the patio by 5:15 or 5:30. But since we couldn't get this room until later than that, it kind of shifted us back to helter skelter. So we're as good as we are. So I'll just say, pray that we get it all done tonight. And as soon as Mark gets finished, he's our speaker, but he's busy talking.
I'm ready.
Are you? Okay, well then let's turn it over to Mr. Mark Cook.
start here. I'm going to jump back and forth between some presentations and see if I can get this going here. Because there's some stuff I really want to be able to show you. And I've been on the road all morning. So, well, sorry about the Little Rock, Arkansas. I was actually just with Perry Lake a couple days ago and I presented in Little Rock. And so I'm using that presentation because the presentation, I had to crunch everything in about 30 minutes. And I've got a little bit longer with you guys, so I go a little slower. But it's a great presentation. And I'll show you a couple other things that are Texas specific that I have found as I've been going around the different counties here that are very alarming. And so one comment I just heard is they're not going to turn this county blue or over my dead hands. Here's the problem with the system we've got is they can do it without you even realizing. You don't have control of it. So it doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter that you're not going to let them do it. They're going to do it right from under you, and I'm going to show you how they're doing it. And it's not necessarily just turning it blue, but basically taking over the election system in a way that the cabal, can place the people they select into these positions. And it may be people on the left, it's also people on the right. It is people that are not citizens, but people that are establishment and that are corrupt, permanent, lifelong politicians, or people that will do their bidding, or people that are compromised, or that, they've got threats and they'll cave to those. So anyway, real quick, I started programming when I was 10 years old. I've been doing this a very long time, since before the internet. And seriously, back in the bulletin board days, CompuServe, Prodigy, etc. And my job has turned into protecting people's networks. That's what I do, a contracted IT staff. So I am the IT staff for companies all over Colorado and part of the United States. And so my company is that contracted staff, so they don't have to have their own full-time staff. And so our job is to keep their network safe and secure. I work with a lot of these same operating systems that I was surprised to find our election systems actually run on the same operating systems that I maintain on a daily basis and have been doing for decades. And so as a computer guy, when I found all this out, I didn't know it originally. 4 years ago, I had no idea. When I found it out, I was absolutely shocked and extremely scared because I know how vulnerable those systems are. And I just figured, well, gosh, they have taken these extremely vulnerable systems, and at least they've made them secure. What I found out is they are actually less secure than a lot of the systems that I would see in a dentist office. And that is a shock because we are told these things are secure, and what they promised us is not what they delivered us. And we are being lied to, and I'm here to tell you about that because I don't know what else to do. We can't change it from the top. They already know it's fixed. They know they've got these systems set up in a way they can manipulate them. And so all I can do is go to the county and talk to you directly and try to help you guys understand it because there aren't cybersecurity experts in this room, are there? Is anyone a cybersecurity expert? IT expert? Are there IT people here at least? Okay, so we got a few. So you're going to understand some of the things I'm talking about. And it's crazy. So I've been all over the country doing this since almost a day after the election. I jumped into this. And I worked a week and a half after the election, I was asked to go out to D.C. to help people in D.C. figure this stuff out. And I was working out of Sidney Powell's war room after her staff got evacuated. I worked there with 10 people, and I lived in that hotel for 2 months. So I didn't expect to be there for 2 months. I expected to be there for a day. So I had to buy clothes on Amazon, had them shipped in, because I only had a day of clothes with me in my backpack at the time. But once I saw what I saw, I knew that I cannot ignore this. I can't go back to my normal life because the citizens, my fellow citizens of my country, are being conned. And I don't like people getting taken advantage of. I like putting people in prison and in jail when they take advantage of others. I do not put that. So here we go. When I was a little kid, I remember this. My mom took me to play. I did a puppet show. I wasn't a big fan of little things like that. I wasn't easily distracted by watching the little thing on stage. And in fact, I remember being at this puppet show, and I would not sit down. I got up when everyone else was sitting there watching the puppets, and I got up and walked to the front. Why do you think I did that? Because I wanted to see this. That's what I spent the whole puppet show watching, was the person pulling the strings. That's my mentality that I've had since I was a little kid, and I still have it to this day. And I have uncovered a lot of very interesting string pulling. And I want you guys to understand who's pulling the strings and how they're doing it. Because you have to understand the system to be able to fix the system.
Hallelujah.
What was that?
Hallelujah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so how did we get here? Well, they think you're stupid. That's how we got here. And y'all are ignorant of what the computer systems are capable of and what smart people can do. You know, criminals are not criminals because they're stupid. Some of them are. Obviously, our sheriff here can probably look at that. But there are some criminals that are actually very, very smart. And they have taken billions from people. And in this case, these criminals have very skillfully transformed our election system into a system that is now in their hands and not in our hands like it was supposed to be by our founding fathers. And so the concept of a decentralized government, everyone should understand here, there's a reason why we had a decentralized government, because we do not want tyranny. Our election system was decentralized in the beginning, and then it's been transformed into this centralized system that a few corporations run. Now, we think we're running them. Our election officials think they're using the tools, but in actuality, it's really controlled by the vendors that write the software and that have access to the databases. And so our officials only have access to the stuff they think they have access to, but they can't control it. That is the problem. And a smart person, like if I was a bad guy, I would be president of the United States right now. I would be a billionaire because I could pull things on y'all, everyone, that no one would ever know about. It's that easy. And I know there are smart people that are out there that are evil that will do this, and I'm watching it play out right now. And it's freaking me out, and I want to stop it, but I need your help to do it. So, who is they? I hear that question a lot. Well, they are the evil geniuses that have decided to do this. So, the election ecosystem. I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of what it is and how it works. It's four main components. It's a voter registration database. That is a list of names and addresses that are allowed to vote. It's a record in a database that's allowed to vote, not a person that's allowed to vote. It is a record in a database that's allowed to vote. So if I inject 10,000 extra records in that database, that means 10,000 extra votes can be put into our election system. That's a massive problem right there, because there's a disconnection now between the human, the person, the citizen, and the ability to vote, to get a ballot. That's one of the massive vulnerabilities that they have created in this system. Can the system work? Well, it could, but the problem is if you're a bad actor, you can manipulate it, and that's the problem. No one ever thought to ask, could a bad guy manipulate this system when they were making the decision whether or not they should go to it or not? They didn't realize what the effects of that were. The voter validation system is the second component of the election system, and that is there to, what we're told, protect to make sure no illegitimate ballots can be injected into our system. So even though we don't have control of the voter registration system like we think we should, if a ballot gets put in, what controls whether that ballot gets counted or not? So for mail-in ballots, that's the signature verification. The signature verification system, the idea, the concept, is defective in the very beginning. The signature verification that we do cannot prove that the ballot inside that envelope was filled out by the person that apparently signed that envelope. There is no connection there. I could fill out a ballot, I could put it in an envelope, I could forge someone's name on it, and by the time it got to a signature verifier, there is no way that signature verifier could ever know that Bob filled it out and I didn't. And all those names, those signatures are all out there. They're out in the open. Every database has been hacked. In fact, we don't even need to hack them because on every deed and everything you sign, DMV records, your signature's all over the place. So everyone's got your signature. And in fact, these guys are so good that they have all the signatures also because they take those signatures for their signature verification system. So they have all the signatures. If they are a bad guy or a bad guy gets into their databases, they can have all those signatures and then they can forge them all. They can even print them right on the envelopes, inject those ballots right into the system, and the signature verifiers wouldn't have a clue. The other problem with signature verifiers is they aren't trained properly and they're not tested. Would you get on an airplane, your pilot had been through the training but never tested to see if he or she learned anything? They never got into the flight simulator? Would you get on an airplane? No. But we're jumping right into our election system. We're allowing people to verify signatures that we don't even know if they learned anything in their training, if they had training. I'm finding that in a lot of cases, people aren't even trained. In order for a court to identify whether a signature is valid or not, it has to be done by a certified forensic document examiner with 2 years of schooling. That's what the legal requirement is. Why on earth? Our ballots are worth far more than anything. They are the most valuable thing we have, is our voice. Yet, we have a system that is defective in determining if that voice is legitimate or not inside the ballot. So, that's a problem. Now, the poll books is the other part of the validation system. When you walk in to vote, you're checked in this electronic poll book. Well, those databases are also out of our hands. And in Dallas, and in fact, Beth is here, and she witnessed this with her own eyes. She's an election judge, and before the polls closed, she was looking, and all her people were looking at their poll books, and on each poll book is a number, and that number is the number of people that were checked in on that poll book. So if 5 people came up to Beth's line, up to her, and she checked in 5 people throughout that day, the number 5 would be on that poll book. Real simple. And a 6th person comes in, it goes to number 6. 45 minutes before the polls closed, the numbers on the poll book started going up, but they weren't checking anyone in. I know what's going on. I'm a computer guy. The computer people in here know what's going on. Someone was injecting records into a database. Very simple. And the poll book was recognizing that. It didn't know the difference. Those poll books are all connected via wireless technology that was hacked in 2018. And even if they weren't connected with wireless technology that was hacked in 2018, they're on a network, and if someone knew how to access that network, they could manipulate it from the other side of the world. Because the county can't control the poll books, and the state can't control the poll books. The poll books are controlled by a corporation. And if someone happened to hack into that corporation, it's totally out of everyone's control. I don't trust the corporation. I only trust the citizens. Because these elections, last I checked, should belong to us. So why aren't we managing this? So, tabulation is the next part. That's the third component of the election system. The tabulation system counts the choices on the ballot. Very simple. If the thing that counts the choices on the ballot wants to count it differently than reality, we have a massive problem too. And when the citizens aren't the ones determining what the voter intent is and counting it themselves, we are trusting an independent third party to do that for us. And if that third party isn't doing it properly, we have no control of that. They could easily manipulate it, we wouldn't know. Because try to get access to the ballots. See how easy that is? That's a problem. And if someone else were able to hack those systems, a third party, not even the vendor, not even a corporation, let's say someone just knew how to manipulate the system. They could manipulate the vote, like in South Carolina. That's what was done in South Carolina. They had breached the seals on the machines, the DS200 machines. Are you guys a HART or ESS?
HART.
Okay, so I'll talk about HART here. So anyway, the tabulation system, really, really important also. The reporting system, after the clerk pulls the results, and let's say the results show 100 for Bob and 50 for Mary, and they hand 100 for Bob and 50 for Mary to this other company that handles the results. And then we just trust that company to report those same results back to us, add them all up right, and give them back to us. What could go wrong? What if they add them up wrong? What if they flip 2 of the candidates because they want to? Why are we letting someone else add up our results? Why aren't we reporting them at the precinct level to all the citizens? Because I think we can add. Can we still add? Okay, so we know how to add things together. So we should have precinct level results. And we'll take care of adding them up. We don't need this other corporation doing it for us or reporting it back to us. Just let the citizens add them up, report them right there, and then we don't have all this potential for issues. Okay, so the voter registration system controls the number of ballots in circulation. That's out of our control. The voter validation system controls which ballots get counted, also out of our control. The tabulation system controls how they get counted, out of our control. And the recording system controls what results we see, also out of our control. Do you see any potential for problems? Everywhere. All of them. Okay. So in the past, the voter registration database is handled at the county level. You'd walk in to the precinct, polling location. You'd prove your identity, usually by comparing the voter registration cards on paper with your signature. You'd show your ID, they check you off, they hand you a ballot, you fill the ballot out, you put the ballot in a box. And then at the end of the day, they open the box and everyone counts it right there. Your ballot never leaves the room. Where are ballots going now? They're going all over the world. From the very moment that ballot gets printed, we lose control of it. The very beginning. So we break chain of custody on our ballots immediately. And once you break chain of custody, it's gone. You cannot control it again. That's a massive problem. And then the reporting was done from the precincts to the county. Usually they pick up a phone, call the county, say, here's our results at this precinct. And then they bring their paperwork and everything into the county. And that gave us a whole lot of transparency because the citizens ran that. And that gave us our freedom. We were in charge of our elections. So what's happened is state and corporations have taken control. And they did it through lobbying, they did it through convincing people that it would be cheaper and faster. But the problem is that people they were convincing weren't knowledgeable enough about how the system could be manipulated. And they made a very uneducated decision and signed up for these systems, which then we're all believing that the people that we elect to make these decisions are making decisions in our best interest. The problem is they didn't. They didn't do their due diligence. They didn't talk to the right people to see how dangerous these systems are. And it's not like we haven't known that electronic voting systems are dangerous. The media has actually been on us since 2000, I think. In 2018, they shut up and told us the opposite. But at least for 18 years, they were actually passing on all of these people's suggestions to not go to electronic voting systems. There's articles that date back to 2000 for this. It's not a secret. In fact, our own vice president right now, quote unquote, she even screamed in Congress about electronic voting systems and what a bad idea they are. I've got 45 minutes of footage of Democrats screaming about how dangerous electronic voting systems are. So this is not a D versus R problem. This is an establishment, a non-citizen establishment versus just the citizens that decided they want to run the show. And they want us just kind of along for the ride. So we're going through the motions. We think we're taking part in this. But actually, we're not. We don't even need to take part in an election. They could just tell us the results and we'd save a whole lot of time and money. Because that's we're almost at that point. So voter registration systems have been taken. ERIC is a system that was purchased by the state to handle the voter registration database in this state and a whole bunch of others. There is a bill that is it been signed?
It's signed.
Okay, so the bill signed to keep you guys out of ERIC right now. That's great. Thank everyone that worked on that bill. That's a big deal. And then I think 9 other states have dropped ERIC. So hopefully we get all of them dropping it. By the way, ERIC, from what I heard, their building, I think only had 3 people in it. Didn't even have a building, it was just this little office. And they're handling the voter registration database for 20-something states in the country. What could go wrong? They could control the entire election from that. A few people, 3 people, could control the entire election of this country. That's the danger of consolidating our election system. Never centralize. It's easy to go back. We just go back and decentralize.
Mark, can you explain what Eric did and what the intent was?
Sure, the intent for ERIC, what we were told is, we're gonna make sure no one votes in more than one place, more than one state at the same time. We're gonna clean the voter rolls and make sure no dead people are on them. We're gonna make sure that only real registered to vote citizens are on those voter rolls. And that all sounds great if they actually did that that would be great. The problem is, if they don't do that, then we are believing that they're doing it when they're not, which leaves a huge door open for manipulation. And if their system is insecure in any way and someone else has access to it, they can use that to inject things into it, then someone else has control of who votes in your election hearing. And every place I've been to that have started doing canvassing of the people on that list have found dead people, have found 20 people registered to one address, found people registered in the middle of an intersection. If that even happens one time, that if one dead person is registered to vote, that's a problem. That means the system failed. And if it failed that one time, how do we know it didn't fail a million times? The fact that it did once. And it did, everywhere. So that's why people are leaving Eric right now. So there it is, these are all the states, 32 states. 32 states. That's insane. Not to mention the contract, these few people made a lot of money. So this right here is a video, I'm not gonna show the whole thing because I have very limited time, but this is a video from an Iranian whistleblower. I have not been able to vet it all the way back to the data, but what this is it's a video watching that he recorded on his screen showing getting into our voter registration database, extracting data from the database, then going to our fvac.gov website, fvap.gov, and registering and creating a ballot from this information in the database. And in this video, he actually ends up showing one folder, the Alaska folder, because he had a bunch of folders for different states. The Alaska folder alone had 134,720 something ballots in it. And there's probably about the same number in these other folders for other states. Did any of those ballots make it into our election? We don't know, because we have a system we can't verify. The citizens can't check that. That's ridiculous. We should be able to check that. And that's what they're doing, they're creating a ballot. So if you want to watch it afterwards, find me, I'm staying here all night, so I'm happy to play a little video for you. So the poll books, 18% of the counties in the country still use paper poll books. Paper poll books are great. It's a list of names that are allowed to vote when you walk into a polling center. And they check you in a paper book. That's a fantastic idea. Some counties in Texas are still doing that. That's great. But when you have an electronic poll book, that's a problem because you don't have control of it. Now, some very smart judges and poll workers like Beth, kept a paper notebook next to their electronic poll books. And every time they checked someone on the electronic poll book, they also wrote the name down on a piece of paper. And they kept a book of all those. That's a really brilliant idea, keeping a parallel set of books. And I encourage every county to do that. If you have electronic poll books, just make your county do it, period. Get them to agree to do it. It's just some extra insurance. And then you can check the data. You can check the paper against the machine, the electronic poll book, and you can even pull those entries up on the machine. Now, if a smart guy wants to manipulate it after the fact, they'll just do it, you'll never know. But at least you'll put them on record as knowing you're checking. So they won't manipulate it while you're looking at it. But keep that, because you might be able to get that information later and compare it with what you have on paper, and you might be able to prove someone injected entries into your poll book system. Yes?
Yes, in our county, we have stickers that print out your name, and we keep one copy of stickers, the judge does.
Great.
And the other one goes on, where they sign, and that goes to election.
Okay.
But the judge gets to keep all the stickers of names, and so we.
That's great. So you don't have to write them down, you just have the stickers. Now, does anyone take and compare, do they get a printout at the very end and compare the digital printout from the poll book database with all the stickers you have?
No, we don't.
You should do that, because it doesn't make sense just having the stickers, the names, if you don't cross-reference it with the data. And so that should be a no-brainer. So that should be an audit that's done every time. You're just cross-referencing, making sure those names match up.
Get a number printed out that you cross-reference with the labels.
Okay, yeah. So everyone should check that out. Okay, so the rest of the country, the other, gosh, wow, 82% of the country is using electronic poll books. Totally out of the citizens' control who votes. So in Texas, 1.4% of counties are using paper poll books. I visited some of those counties. I'm really happy they're doing that. But the rest of you, that's bad. Get back to paper poll books. You gotta do it to protect yourselves do everything you can to get back to that. Okay, so the tabulation. These are the companies: Election Systems and Software, ES&S, Dominion, Hart, Unison, Clear Ballot, Premier, Sequoia, and Microvote. Those are the companies that are counting 99.8% of our votes in this country. The citizens have given up the counting of their votes to these corporations. We need to fix that. And in Texas, well, you're at almost a 50-50 between ES and S and Hart. 0.1% hand count here. That's a very smart 0.1%. So everyone knows modems and voting machines are a bad idea. It was talked about even before the 2020 election. Dominion knew it, ES&S knew it. We were all promised they weren't in there. And then a few months later, they start removing modems from voting machines. How do you remove a modem from a machine that doesn't have a modem in it? Or do you think they might have lied to us? That's what I'm finding is this pattern of lies from the very companies that are creating these systems. There's 35 wireless devices that were found in the Mesa County, Colorado system that was audited. 35. So that means the laptops, the tabulation systems, possibly the server, all of those components for the election system, they were specifically ordered by the vendor from Dell to have wireless devices embedded in them. When you order a computer from Dell, especially for something like that, you customize each component that goes in that system. Someone selected the wireless device to be added to those voting systems. Why? And it only takes one. They're all networked together. If I can get onto one system, I don't need them in 35. I just need them in one as a backup. And once I get on one, and I can do it over Bluetooth, I can do it over Wi-Fi, I can do it over cellular, I can do it over some hidden proprietary wireless technology that no one even knows about. You do it over that? Absolutely. Power line, right? You can get Ethernet power line transceivers that if you don't have a good wireless signal, you need to get Ethernet from one place to another in your house. You go to Best Buy and buy these things. You plug an Ethernet cable in, it goes through your power wiring. So there's unlimited ways. Trust me. I could do it with the blinking light on the hard drive activity light. I could blink that with a Morse code of some type to figure out what the password for the system is. If I want to know what that password was in a very subtle way. And I can do it from outside just by using binoculars from a distance. So there's a million ways you can take advantage of it if you know how to do it. So this is a motherboard from one of the Dominion tabulators. And do you see the wireless device on it? If you are a clerk and you open this thing up, which you're not allowed to open anyway, even though you're in charge of the election, and this is your equipment, but you can't open the equipment up. But if you did, does anyone see the wireless device? Okay, well, we got one person that knows what they're looking for. So I'll zoom in. There it is. It's that little thing right there. No bigger than the little end of this. And of course, the board's made in China. All of them. Your hard stuff, your ES&S, those boards are made in China. Hard and ES&S have admitted it. They claim originally they said they're made in America. And then you ask me, like, okay, where are the boards from? Oh, well, the boards are made in China. But we assemble everything here. Duh. Right.
We pay.
Okay, so let me preface this. So this is Pete Lichtenheld. He is the vice president of customer success at Hart Intercivic. And this is a quote from him in Kirk County. He's absolutely honest about this, and he's absolutely right.
We pay to have our system penetration tested, hacked, basically, to find out, are there weaknesses and what can we do to fix those weaknesses, right? To make it less hackable. And I'll fully admit, anybody who says something's not hackable is a fool, so anything can be hacked, right? But it takes access to the thing, knowledge, and mostly time.
He's right. Anything can be hacked. And listen to him very carefully. We pay to make our systems less hackable. So do you guys feel better now? Your system's less hackable. Not hack-free, less hackable. Are you confident now? Okay. Right from the guy. Why are we using the systems? It's absurd. So this is a ballot. QR code in the upper left. Pete went on to say that HART now is going to take a stance because humans can't read QR codes. They're going to make sure their system uses what's called optical character recognition, OCR, to read the words instead. So they're going to get rid of the QR code, which I thought was a great idea because I could program all kinds of things in that QR code. I could program an algorithm in there. I could program new code that replaces existing code on the voting system. So everything passes beautifully, but then you can inject something for just a ballot. I could create, if I was a bad guy, I would create those at home. I'd encode the new operating system or new code inside that QR code. I'd print 100 of them. I'd go drop them in the mail. I'd drop a few off at a polling center. And then the election officials would actually be delivering the payload themselves. The ballots themselves could be Trojan horses to change the way the system works. That's what very sophisticated, intelligent people could do using QR codes. And the QR codes are also encrypted. So if they just have the choices on the ballot in the QR code, well, there's software that'll decode QR codes. In fact, you have it all on your phones. That's how you pull up the menus, right? That's how you order stuff. When you take a picture of a QR code or put it up to your camera, it just decodes it and decodes it into a URL. And you can put anything you want in one of those. So if this just had the choices of the ballots in it, you would think you would just decode it and you would see the choices on the ballot. But you don't. They obfuscate and it's encrypted. So you can't even see it. So not only can the human can't read it without software, but then when you use software to read the QR code, you still can't see it. Why? There's no reason for that. So he bragged about getting rid of it, and then he said the only thing they're gonna put in the QR codes from this point forward is the precinct number. 10 seconds before he said he's getting rid of the QR codes. Then he said the only reason he's keeping them is for the precinct number. So if that system is smart enough to read U.S. Representative, District 2, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, Comptroller, it can read all those words, but it doesn't know how to read the word precinct. Do you believe that? Or do you think they might be lying again? Probably lying again. Okay, so they tell us how secure they are. In fact, right on their website, they have to add the word secure so the idiots think it's secure. They talk about all these things they do, and all this, this is Dominion, but they're all the same. ES&S talks about the same crap. And HART does the same thing. I've looked at the Dominion system, that's why I have it up here, and I know they are lying about this stuff. They flat out have it on their website, and they're flat out lying. And I think there should be a massive class action lawsuit from hundreds of millions of people against them for lying about all this stuff. So I was the lead forensic investigator on Tina Peters' case in Mesa County, Colorado. And very briefly, she's a clerk, Gold Star mom, grandma actually, lost her son in a parachute accident, who's a Navy SEAL. She saw long DMV lines, and she just wanted to do her civic duty to fix the DMV lines. They're like 3 or 4 hours long. She said, I know I can fix that. She was a business owner earlier in life, and so she wanted to do her civic duty to fix that. And part of it's running elections. Well, she ran an election, and the 2020 election obviously was very weird for everyone. So everyone's on edge. Then she runs a municipal election right after that. In her 100% red county. Are you guys right here? Okay, all right, just making sure, okay? All conservative city council, all running for re-election. And everyone thought everything was fine. She was running a clean election, she was doing everything she was supposed to do. She did all her logic and accuracy testing, all the audits came out fine, everything was good. Then this election happens. All of the conservative incumbents lost their race. I actually went one step ahead. Let me go one step back. One of the representatives for one of the liberal candidates that ran bragged to Tina that her candidate won by 2,500 votes before Tina ever pulled the results from the voting system. And Tina thought, well, how would she know? I'm the one who pulls the results and I haven't pulled the results yet. So, crazy. Well, when she pulled the results, that candidate won by 2,500 votes. Somehow they knew. Wouldn't that scare you if you were clerk and someone knew the information that you didn't even know yet? And you got it even pulled from your system? So she was a little weirded out by that. So it was a slaughter. Every single incumbent lost, and the entire city council was replaced with liberal candidates. One of them had just moved there 3 months before. No one knew who they were. So all the citizens are coming to her saying, Tina, how did this happen? And she thought, I don't know. I mean, I ran the election just like I was supposed to, just like I've been doing. She thought, okay, well, I could recount everything. It's not a big deal. I have the ballots. I can just run it through again. Right then, the Secretary of State and a voting system vendor came to her and said, we're going to do an update on your voting system. And we need to come in there to do that right now. And so she just had this very weird, contentious thing happen. She's weirded out by it. She wants to recount these things. And now she's being told by the SOS and the vendor that they're going to come and make changes to her voting system. So she asked, what changes are you going to make? They said, we're going to remove the QR code feature from your system. Well, all of her ballots had QR codes on them. So how is she going to recount all those if the system doesn't read QR codes anymore? Right? She couldn't. So what she did is she took a forensic image of her voting system. Everything from every 1 and 0, like an identical copy of the system. Just like a sheriff might do in an investigation, an electronic investigation, you take a forensic image of that system. So you have an exact copy of that computer. That's what she did. And that way, no matter what they did, if she needed to recount that election, she could do it with the exact image that counted it the first time. And so they came up to do that work. Now, how long does it take you to turn off a feature on your phone? 5 seconds? Some of us that are really slow, maybe a minute, if you can't figure out what stupid menu it's in. Okay? On your computer, same thing. How long does it take? Not very long. If you do an update on your software on your phone, how long does it take? Maybe your phone reboots, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Computer might be 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how many updates there are. 2 teams of people in the Secretary of State office and a voting system vendor came out to Mesa County, Colorado. They kicked Tina out of her own office. They kicked out all of her employees. They covered the windows up. And they were in there for 2 solid days doing something that no one could see what they were doing. Tina didn't know what to do. The Secretary of State herself called for this. Who did she go to? She should have gone to her sheriff. But here's the other problem. Our sheriffs a lot of times don't want to get involved in election issues. They're not educated in election issues. They don't know what they're, where they can start, where they can stop. It's kind of an unknown for a lot of them. And so, I hope there is a coalition of sheriffs that's kind of starting to come together to help educate our sheriffs so they understand elections and can help enforce those elections to be fair for their counties. So anyway, I was on that forensic team. I got to look at that image. And she also took an image when they left, right? After they left, she took another image. And she figured someone could look at the after image and the before and see what they actually changed. My eyes, these 2 eyes right here, were the first ones that got to see that image in the world. So I know what I'm talking about because I saw it. I spent months on these images. The first thing I looked at is what did they actually do? And what I determined they did, and as any IT person would know, they reformatted the hard drive, repartitioned it, wiped out everything on it, and then put a whole new voting system image on top of the one that was there. And they did it to probably all the systems in the office. That's the only thing they take in 2 solid days. Why would they do that? They wiped out all the databases, they wiped out all the log files, any trace. If there was some funny business in there, they wiped off everything that would be able to indicate that there was funny business going on. But because Tina took that forensic image, we got to see it. And there was funny business. So the first thing I did on the second image, or the second report that I did, is I want to see if that system was actually secured. And the system, in 1 minute, I was able to flip the results of an election using a back door that was built into that voting system. It was pre-installed by the vendor. And then I connected my laptop to it separately. And this is on the image, so it wasn't the actual system. I didn't manipulate a real live voting system. It was image, exact duplicate image of the voting system. I connected my computer to it, and I was able to get into the voting system server from just a wire and change the results of the election, bypassing all the Dominion software, going right into the database, using the back door that Dominion actually opened and created as part of the installation of their software. There's no reason for that. None. Like I said, I have dentist systems that are far more secure than our voting systems are. And then I picked up my cell phone and I connected it wirelessly by simulating one of those 35 wireless devices I told you about. So I connected to that same network. I downloaded that free app, Fing, F-I-N-G, from the App Store. I scanned the network. It found the voting system server. It found these open ports, more than just this listed here. And an open port is like an open door to a building. So basically, it walks around the building and looks for all the doors that are open. Simple as that. It found all these doors open on the server. And I saw this one, 1433, that's Microsoft SQL Server. And that's the database system that's used on that. So if that port's already open, that door is open, I downloaded another free piece of software. And this free piece of software got me right into the voting system database, and I was able to flip the results of the election with my iPhone. Meanwhile, they're telling all the citizens that these are the gold standard, the most secure systems in the world. It's a joke, and they are lying to each and every one of us. The same company that tested Dominion also tested Hart and ES&S. Then I later find this report written in 2014 that says, if remote access is gained, recovery of user credentials through system memory analysis can be executed and used to modify the backend database of the EMS server. That's exactly what I did. In 2021, I found that same vulnerability still on the system. Is 2014 a few years before 2021? There have been multiple versions of Dominion that have come out since this report, and they've never closed that hole. It's easy to close. It would take me 30 minutes to close that. I can make that system 90% more secure in 30 minutes. They did not take the opportunity to do it. These are all the different versions, or some of them. 4.14, that's what the report was written on. And that was certified back in 2014. Then there was a 5.0 certified in 2017, 5.5 in 2019, and then 5.17 certified in 2023, a few months ago. Now, I don't know what they did in 5.17 because I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I looked at 5.11 and 5.13. I'm guessing by now they've probably hidden those tools better, but I would love to see what they've done now. Since all this has been out there and I've been speaking for a year and a half about this stuff, I'd like to see what they actually cleaned up and what else they did. Because I don't trust them at all at this point. You'll also notice the testing standard on these. Right here, 2005. Now, in 2014, they used a testing standard that was 9 years old. That's ridiculous. In 9 years, do you think that maybe there's been some more vulnerabilities found, some more hacks? Of course. But look at this, it gets way worse. In 2017, they used the same 2005 standard. In 2019, they used a 2005 standard. And in 2023, they used a 2005 standard. There are two newer standards out there. There's a standard that came out in 2017 and a standard that came out in 2021. They aren't using those. They're there, they're ignoring them. The EAC, Election Assistance Commission, who's responsible for managing and making sure elections are secure, the software is certified and tested properly, they have those senior standards. They're not even insisting until I started making a big fuss about it. And then a few weeks ago in House Admin, they now, the EAC, as they got grilled by a bunch of congressmen, said they are going to require the 2.0 standard now, the 2021 standard. Any new voting system has to have that 2021 standard. And the reason they said that is because the older standards aren't secure enough. Okay, yeah, they're far less secure than the 2021 standard, but even the 2021 standard is years old, and there's been new viruses that have come out since yesterday. So why are we still using one that's 2 years old? But it gets worse. They're not invalidating the use of any of the systems that are certified to anything less than the 2021. So all of the older ones that don't meet the current certification, they're still allowing to be used. So what's the point requiring new if you're still gonna allow the insecure systems to be used across the country? What should have happened is they should have immediately grounded everything that doesn't meet those certifications. Look at the 737 MAX. What did Trump do? We had a crash, there was another crash somewhere else, and he grounded the whole fleet, pulled them all off. Well, we have proven that these systems are vulnerable, and they're letting people jump on these planes still. It's dangerous. And it's worse than that, because our planes are crashing and people don't realize why. Okay, so the other thing is that you'll notice testing labs, ProVNV, SLI, ProVNV. SLI testing lab is a subsidiary of GLI, Gaming Laboratories Incorporated. Gaming Laboratories Incorporated tests your casino's systems. The gambling machines, slot machines. Isn't that weird? The companies that test our voting system also tests casino systems. But I gotta tell you, I feel more comfortable voting on a slot machine than our current system. And I think that's about all we have. I think that's what they are. So, this here is not a structurally sound building. A truck ran into that. And let's see here, I'm probably going over, so I'm not gonna show you the video, but I'll show you this. Eric Coomer is the Director of Strategy and Security of Dominion Voting Systems. He's also a programmer. He's worked there for a long time. He's incredibly intelligent. That evil genius I showed you earlier, that is him. That's one of them. He has a lot of patents on voting system technology that is shared by other vendors with his name on it. And before the 2020 election, he was on a Zoom call with a bunch of Antifa people. And the quote from that call was, "Trump isn't going to win." Do we have any kids here?
Yep.
Yes, we do. "I made effing sure of it." Except he didn't say effing. That's what he said to brag before the 2020 election. Can you imagine the implications of someone like that being that biased when he has control of everything that happens to that company?
And yet Fox paid him.
And Fox decided to launder $728 million to Dominion because look who owns Fox and look who owns Dominion. Follow the money all the way up. It's the same company. Okay. So here's why this matters to ESNS and HART in Texas. The same company, like I said before, SLI, ProVNV, 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 HART, Clear Ballot, Unison, ESNS. The same companies that tested and certified Dominion, tested and certified the software you use here in this state. Those companies missed these glaring vulnerabilities, and I found hundreds more. There's a lot more, I just had to keep it really simple. They missed all that. They missed the one that someone had already reported in 2014 and had allowed it to stay in. How do you trust what you're using here? You can't. Now, Texas hired 6 independent people, quote unquote independent, I don't know where they actually came from, to evaluate the software you guys use here. I saw the reports, and in those reports, some of them bring up some really good problems that the software had, some insecurities, vulnerabilities, but there's nothing stating that they fixed them before they started using them in Texas. That's odd. I would love to be able to dive into that. Okay, so tabulation, obviously went state corporate. Reporting also did the same thing. This is South Carolina Secretary of State website. You would think it looks just like it, but if you right click on your web browser in the white area and go to view page source, you can pull up the source code for the web page. I did this in South Carolina because it looked a lot like Colorado's. The colors were different, but the format was the same. It was eerie, almost like the same company made it, they just changed the colors. And what I found is it's actually Cital. So South Carolina hired this company Cital to handle their reporting. They would give all their data to Cital. Cital would then create a web page that looks like the South Carolina Secretary of State website, but it's not. And then they integrate it into the site so the citizens don't know the difference. And the election officials also didn't know. They think they're sending their results to the Secretary of State, but the link they were given to click on to upload the results actually sent them elsewhere. It sent them to Cital, but they didn't know. And this happened in Colorado and a whole bunch of other states also. Can you imagine how dangerous it is if you consolidated the control of the reporting of what the results for our elections are through one company or any company? That's why we have to report at the precinct level, out in the open for everyone across the entire country. That's the only way we can take these people out of the picture. Look up Seidel and Clarity. Clarity is the same company, it's just under a different name from the US. Seidel is a Barcelona, Spain company. Seidel went bankrupt prior to the 2020 election. But don't worry, they've still been handling all the reporting for all the elections despite going bankrupt. And they're in another country. So we're trusting some corporation that's bankrupt in another country to handle the results of our elections. I mean, when they say they think we're stupid, I gotta say, they got a point. We have been very stupid. So in an honest election, you allow the citizens to vote, you collect the ballots, you tabulate the results of the ballots, and then you get the results. Very simple. A low-tech way to manipulate that would be you look at the ballots first, you get your hands on them, and you figure out how many extra votes you need for a particular candidate or race that you want to manipulate. And then you fill in some undervotes, or you inject some more ballots, or you take out some ballots. So undervotes, so everyone knows what an undervote is. If Bob and Mary are running for a race, and you don't vote for either of them. Yes, you say, I don't like either of them, I'm not voting for either. Or if you say, I don't really know enough to vote, so I'm not gonna vote for them. Well, when you leave that open, if someone got their hand on your ballot before it goes to the tabulator, they could just fill that in. And then they have a free vote. They don't even have to create a new ballot. It's right there. It's like a free vote form. Don't leave undervotes. If anything, I would recommend an overvote. Vote for all the candidates, because that has to get thrown out and can't get counted. And once you fill out all of them, or even more than one, but I would just do all of them, no one can use it for an undervote manipulation anymore. So that would be my suggestion right now. If someone has a better idea or a different idea, I'm definitely open, but that's where I'm leaning right now.
Would writing be better?
No, because they could ignore the write-in. And they could just, they could fool the write-in, they could, put white out over it, and then they could fill in an undervote. Now, if you selected write-in, that might make it more difficult. So write-in is better if you truly want to put that person in a write-in, but if you don't want to vote for any of them, I would just vote them all. Fill them all in. Okay, so that's the old school way. I insert the ballots, and then you can manipulate it, because if you're manipulating those ballots before they go through the tabulator, no one would know the difference. And this actually happened. I'm not going to play the video, but I can afterward. Crystal, who is a clerk in Carbon County, Montana, she was on the ballot for re-election. She was also running the election. How convenient. Just like Katie Hobbs. Just like Katie Hobbs, right? What could go wrong? So not only was she running the election, but she took a bunch of ballots, envelopes with ballots in them, into a room, and she was caught on video. Now, they blacked out all the video except they left this little slit at the very top because they couldn't cover the whole thing up. And then that little slit, God decided to make sure we saw this. And that little slit happened to show right where the paper shredder was. And you can see the office she was in right back there. So you can see her come out of the office. So she went in the office with envelopes. She was in there for a while. She came out with ballots. Tri-folded pieces of paper that all the ballots were tri-folded and they were about ballot size. She went over to the paper shredder and she shredded a whole bunch of them in the paper shredder. Then she went back into that same room, took out some more ballots and went over to the tabulator. And she ended up winning that election by 87 votes. So what I think she did is I think she was filling in undervotes, and she realized she couldn't fill in enough undervotes because no one liked her in the county. And so she decided, I'm going to shred my opponent's ballots. So she figured out how many of the opponent's ballots she had to shred. And she went over to the paper shredder and got rid of them. So that means she canceled their voice for everything they voted for. And I'll tell you, the commissioners, I was there. I was in Carbon County a little bit before that because the seals were all broken on their voting machines also, the tamper-proof seals. And when we brought it up to the commissioners, they kicked us out of their office and got very angry for daring to question their beloved voting machines. And they've been commissioner a long time. Wonder how. But that's the problem with this system. You ask who's the they? The they doesn't have to just be the global, the evil geniuses at the very top. They can also be the evil geniuses in your county that just know how to work the system. And we have a system that's so far removed from the citizens that even county officials can manipulate the election. That's a problem. And I've seen that. There's evidence of that happening all over in counties all over the country. We have a toolbox for manipulating election. That's the problem.
So Crystal never got anything done to her?
So luckily we had the video, went to the sheriff. The sheriff said, I don't know what to do. It's an election issue. Talk to the AG. Went to the AG. The AG said, well, I can't, this is the sheriff has to do it. I can't force him to do it. They just pointed at each other. Meanwhile, the citizens are screaming, what do we do? What do the citizens do? Because it's all out of their control. It's too late at that point. That's the problem. There is no path for the citizens to follow to fix this. They should never have let it got to that point.
What about the Secretary of State? That's bad.
Okay, the Secretary of State in Montana on that election got more votes than the President of the United States. More people in Montana voted for their Secretary of State than for presidential candidates. Many people didn't even know who the Secretary of State was. That's impossible. So the Secretary of State full well knows how manipulated the system is. Because the Secretary of State did not get more votes than the President. All the presidential candidates together. She got more votes. What lawyer is going to take it on? Because they attack the lawyers. They threaten to go after their license, right? So there aren't many attorneys. There's a small handful of attorneys that are even brave enough to risk their license to do the right thing. And then who's going to pay it? Because the citizens, they don't have a lot of money. A lot of these citizens, some of the citizens I talked to out there were living in trailer homes. How are they going to hire an attorney for $600 an hour? They just want their voice to count. So they're at a loss. We have allowed this system to slip into the hands of others. That's the problem. So here's what's happening now, and I'll get to the end of my presentation. So this is the most important takeaway for all of you right now. Here is how they are doing it. This is the level of sophistication that they're at right now. They've got a feedback loop. So they monitor who votes, and they do it two ways. With the mail-in ballots, they tell you that you have this ballot tracking system so you can track where your ballot is to make you feel comfortable voting by mail. It's a false sense of security, it's a psyop, it's games they play. It really upsets me. But they didn't build it for you, they built it for them so they know you voted. They know you voted, and they know what your party affiliation is, and they have all the other social media stuff on you. They built a profile of you, and they know how you're gonna vote. And these people are big data. They collect data. They micro-target you. You say the word lawnmower, and tomorrow Facebook is showing you pictures of lawnmowers, right? They have all the info. So they're collecting the data on who's voting, who's returning their ballot. They know the party affiliation, so they know how you voted. So now they can start building a model of the election. They don't have to look at your ballot. And you can ask, okay, well, I didn't vote by mail. I went in person, so there's no way they could know. Did they check you in on electronic poll book? Yep. So they have that data too. And that's up probably in the cloud, like at Microsoft Azure. By the way, Microsoft, their cloud was just hacked a day ago, I think. Yeah, government. Don't worry, they said non-classified email system was hacked in the Microsoft cloud. But don't worry, the classified one wasn't. Well, they just don't know it was. They found out that the unclassified one was. So anyway, you can't trust that either. So they know when you walk in to vote in person, they know you've come to vote, and they know your party affiliation, and they have the data on you, so they know how you voted. So now they can build a very accurate model of the election without ever looking at a single ballot. So they know exactly what they need to do to manipulate it. And they know that they need to inject so many extra ballots into the system. But how are they gonna do that? They would need time to do that. You couldn't do that all in one day. Well, we don't have election day anymore, we have election month. So they have weeks to inject those, and they don't have to inject them all at once. If they're down 50 ballots on day one, they just have to, between then and the end, just inject 50. But they're not gonna just throw them in one place. What are they gonna do? They're gonna inject them, little here, little here, little here, and they're gonna stay under the radar. But in order to do that, they would have to have all this data on the election, and they'd have to know exactly who's voting where, to know how to stay under the radar in all these different places. They have it all. So they can do all this. It's very simple. And then you bring AI into it, game over. Because now they can do it at AI speeds. We'll never stand a chance against AI. The computer system will just vote for us. And we're just about at that point. Seth Rich was killed. Seth Rich was killed because Seth Rich had a spreadsheet that they were using to calculate how to manipulate elections. That's what one of the things on that USB drive was. So they monitor who votes, they estimate where they need to be, and then they insert extra ballots. How do they get the ballots in? Oh, we have this mail-in ballot system, how convenient. They can just drop them off anywhere. We've given them a path to inject illegitimate ballots into the system with a defective signature verification system. And if you reject too many signatures as a signature verifier, what happens to you? You get fired. So what's happening? And then they end up keeping the ones that don't reject signatures. I worked on the audit for the signature verification for Kerry Lake. I saw those signatures with my own eyes. I saw smiley faces, I saw dots, I saw blank signatures, I saw a signature that was Bob, and the reference was Mary. All of those ballots were counted. Every single one of them. All those citizens were disenfranchised. Even a single ballot that comes into the system, if it's illegitimate, it disenfranchises a voter. So we can't have a system that allows a single ballot to come into our system. Because any one disenfranchises your vote. And you don't deserve that. Yes, sir.
Instead of Texas, they've codified that for mail-in ballots for early voting, that within 24 hours of the day, every day, they're reporting out exactly who from what precinct.
Exactly, and here, that is extremely dangerous. So what he said is they codify every 24 hours, you have to report who has voted in Texas.
And then for election day, they don't have to report that out for 30 days after the election.
And for election day,
On election day.
they don't have to vote until 30 days out who voted on election day. So that gives them it forces the feedback loop. Basically, they're forcing us in the code to give them that data. So they used to have connections to all this, like the signature, the ballot tracking system for the mail-in ballots. If we take that away from them, they kind of lose that part of the feedback, right? But if they codify us giving them that answer, then they have built it in. And they're able to have a feedback loop courtesy of us. So they don't even need connectivity with the poll books if they put it into the code. So it probably sounds like a good idea to a few people that voted for it, but they didn't understand how the bad guy could use it. Very stupid. No one should know who votes until after the polls close. No one should know what is on any ballot until after the polls close. It's supposed to be a surprise afterward, because if you give anyone that information ahead of time, they can manipulate the system. Bad people do bad things, and smart bad people will do it right under your nose and you'll never know. They told us Dominion was made in America. Well, right on the box, made in China. I took this picture in Sacramento County, California. In that same office, there's a locked area where all the election equipment was in the Sacramento County Election Department. The warehouse worker, the guy in the forklift, came over and he had the code for the door and let us in. The warehouse worker had a code for the door which stores all the election equipment for the county. Right inside that door was this laptop I saw. Ballot printing station. I was very curious. I opened it. Well, I asked the clerk to open it for me. And right up here, look at that. California 2020 exclamation mark. That was in December of 2020 that I found that. Underneath that laptop was a cabinet, and in that cabinet was a printer. And in that printer, paper tray, thousands of blank ballot paper. And she told me that you could print any ballot in the county on that system. So I'll recap. The warehouse worker had access to the room with this thing pulled out into the aisle. Then he could open the lid up, look at the password, because warehouse workers sometimes don't remember passwords sometimes. They're focused on moving things around the warehouse. Password's right there, really convenient for anyone. They can log in and print ballots anywhere in the county, and they're already in the elections department. So they're already past all the checks. They can literally just print them out, walk them over, and set them in the stack to be tabulated. How stupid are we? That election, that clerk was just fired a few months ago. Probably because she showed me all this. If you look on greatamericanrebirth.com, if you look at the Sacramento County, California report, it's a report I wrote, and I've got about 300 pictures I took inside that office. We don't have time to go through all the problems I found, but you can look through the pictures. greatamericanrebirth.com. Sorry about all the old articles on there, just look at the Sacramento report. I'm going to go through this very quickly. Richland County, South Carolina. I walked into a voting center when I spoke in South Carolina about a year ago, and I noticed this on the machine. Right there, the seal's missing on the DS200 tabulator. So that behind that door is the USB drive, and that's how you program the tabulator, and that's where all the electronic ballots are stored. The seal is missing. So anyone that's smart could just change the ballot programming. They could change the way the system interprets what's on the ballots. You could flip two candidates really easily. You could change the algorithm, or you could just preload a whole bunch of extra ballots digitally on there. So when they pulled it out later to add up all the results, the digital ballots you injected on there would also get counted as real ballots. Because that's how easy it is. It's so easy to manipulate this stuff. I wish I was a bad guy, but I'm not, and I never will be. I've actually been asked to hack an election. In fact, in Texas, one of the first speaking arrangements I had, someone came up to me and said, "How much would it cost to make me win?" I was so dumbfounded that someone actually asked me that. I didn't even think to find out who it was or get their name. Was it the event you put on? Yeah. So here's another one. I asked South Carolinians to take pictures of all their tabulators all across the state. And here's another one that came into me. Look at this. Do you notice something? I'll zoom in. That's the tamper evidence seal. And if you look, do you see where it says voided? So someone peeled that seal up, then the voided words show up, and then they stuck it back down. But they didn't even stick it down very nicely because it's sticking up over the keyhole. So, I mean, I guess slightly better than not leaving it on, but still someone's been in that door. It's worse though, because look at this. I'll zoom in. Those are the storage compartments that the ballots fall into after they're scanned. Those don't have seals on them. So you can't trust the digital information on the flash drives, you can't trust the programming in the machine, and you can't trust the physical paper ballots in the machine. You can't trust anything about that. And they found this all over South Carolina. Voting center after voting center after voting center. Sheriffs came out, eventually it stopped coming out. I was the first one to call the sheriff, and we filed a police report. And the sheriff showed up, the security guard tried to get in the sheriff's way so the sheriff wouldn't talk to me. Sheriff wasn't having that, and walked up to me and said, "What's going on?" I told him, "I think there's a massive problem in the election, at least in this office here." And he looked at me and said, "I know there's election fraud, but I don't know what to do. What should I do?" The sheriff asked me what you should do. I said, "Well, at least get a picture of it on your body cam. Can you get a picture of the missing seal on the machine? Let's at least get documented so it's not my word against someone else's." He said, "No problem. All I can take a picture of it with my phone." I said, "Great." So he goes inside the office and walks up to the machine to take a picture of it. And he pulls his phone out, and he does this, and the clerk, or elections director, takes her arm and puts her arm out in front and says, no pictures. To the sheriff. The sheriff took the picture anyway. Yes. And then this happened a few weeks later. She resigned without giving a reason. We know the reason. She was caught. And I think the people running the elections in that state, I think most of them know how to manipulate the system. I think they all work together and they've got a system built. Now they think they're red also, but all these rhinos keep winning all the positions. And when I've gone out there to speak, the only people that have criticized me and attacked me and all the citizens that are trying to bring truth to all this are the rhinos. The establishment are the ones attacking. Worse than the Democrats are. Not a D versus R. Okay, Hyder Garcia, this is a Texas deal. Does anyone know about Tarrant County? Has anyone heard of Tarrant County? There we go. Okay, this one might be new for you. So Hyder Garcia, no, not this, but wait till I tell you. Hyder Garcia was number 2 on the list of 10 people that were asked not to leave the Philippines. Because Hyder Garcia worked for Smartmatic Voting Systems, the largest voting system manufacturer in the world, for 13 years. He is a brilliant genius who designed a lot of the voting system for Smartmatic. He designed the systems. He was under investigation for election fraud in the Philippines. They asked him not to leave, along with, 7 employees from Smartmatic, or 6 employees from Smartmatic, and 3 from the Commission on Elections. That would be like the Board of Elections here. He disappeared, and a year later ended up in Placer County, California, and ran elections there for a little bit. Then he left there and ended up in Tarrant County, but not gracefully. The elections director that was hired in Tarrant County, who was a vet, I believe, was on a job for 2 weeks and fired 2 weeks into his job, and someone replaced him with Hyder. I would like to know the circumstances surrounding that. Who hired Hyder? Someone should FOIA all the documents surrounding the hiring of Hyder Garcia. So he runs the election. Well, first of all, he buys a whole new voting system from Park Anderson. Runs the election, and they, of course, talk about the amazing turnout. They have to tell everyone there's amazing turnout for elections because they would never believe the made-up amazing turnout unless they bragged about the amazing turnout, plant the idea in your head. It's called predictive programming. Psychological operation. That's how deep this is. And then 20,000 ballots won't scan. So the smartest guy in the world on elections screws up and 20,000, makes a mistake and 20,000 ballots don't scan. So he has to, with his team, recreate 20,000 citizens' ballots. Do you see some potential for some funny business? Was there any? Well, right after that, that county goes blue for the first time since 1964. So don't tell me it's not happening here. Not here. I hear idiots say that all the time. You gonna wait till it is? How long do you wanna wait? Do you wanna leave and I don't wanna use a gun thing because I'm very pro 2A, but would you leave a gun in a crib with a baby? Probably a bad idea. Well, the baby hasn't shot itself yet. Maybe you shouldn't put it in there. So I called him out on a podcast, and Hyder resigned 2 weeks later, which is great. But I knew that ball was going to bounce. And Steve, do you know where that ball bounced?
You mean where he went?
Yeah. He now works for the EAC. Today was his first day. The Election Assistance Commission that is responsible for testing all of the voting equipment in the country. The guy wanted for an investigation for election fraud in the Philippines. Disappears, go to California, goes to Texas, flips, I don't know what happened in Placer, but I need to look into it. Flips Tarrant County, has a disagreement with the judge. Yeah, because we were hot on him and we brought too much attention to him. And now someone at the EAC hired him. I think someone needs to look into who hired him at the EAC. Because as soon as he walks in the door, he's got access to all of our election stuff for the whole country. And I would say that is a national security matter. And I have made some phone calls, and we will see if Hyder was ever allowed in the door today. I'm hoping the work I did yesterday did not allow him to walk in that door today, but I'll find out tomorrow. That's how bad this is. This is an emergency. So, we have close to no transparency, and that's a very dangerous place to be. The more complex you make a system, the less secure that system becomes. We cannot have a complex system, because a complex system is not understandable by 99.9% of the people in this room. And if you have to use that system to decide everything in your life, how on earth are you supposed to do that with any believability or trust? Can't. So it doesn't matter if it's paper, mechanical, electronic, or computerized. We've been through the whole thing. All we've done, though, is gotten further and further from the system. They've moved the citizens further and further away from the election system. Every iteration of this does that. That is a very stupid direction to go. I consider it completely unimportant who in the party will vote or how. But what is extraordinarily important is this: who will count the vote and how. That's true, right? Who counts the vote means all of it. Who runs the election means all of it. Joseph Stalin said this in 1923, wake the F up. So the whole thing's a magic show. Hate to tell you that. Russ Ramsland puts this very simple diagram together. Does everyone get it? Okay. I used to think this system was a system of just blind trust. But it's worse. It's actually a system, it's blindfolded trust. They've got the blindfolds on our face. They won't let us take them off. And they're sitting there pointing and telling us how great the system is. A little while ago, I know the blindfolds are real because a little while ago, some of you might have had face diapers on because they told you to. So the whole thing's an engineered system. I hate to tell you this, but this is exactly where we're at. It's disgusting. It's my absolute worst nightmare to have to realize this and then share this with you and be in this position alongside you in a country that is supposed to be free, that we have, I don't know how we get out of this. Actually, I do. We can do it little by little. All we do is we follow the breadcrumbs that we left. We go to a decentralized election system, and then we can peel this metastasized cancer out of our country. And it is metastasized, it's everywhere. So, by the way, if we do nothing, here's what we're going to be voting on in a little bit. And the software's already there, the vendors are already ready to make millions, and they're going to bring it in. An insider in Denver already told me they're going to bring it in for the disabled, because that's their excuse every time they want to introduce something new. It's for the disabled. And if you argue against it, what are you? You're a racist. You hate disabled people. And of course, somehow it's racist also. I don't know. But anyway, that's what they're going to do. They're already ready. They're going to make billions of dollars doing this. The software's done. The marketing is there. Start searching for it. E-voting. It's all there. And when that happens, by a show of hands, how many people are poll watchers here? Poll watchers. Poll watchers. Okay? Okay, 20%. When people are voting on these, what are you going to watch? Are you going to follow them around and say, excuse me, ma'am, are you ready to vote yet? Okay, I'll watch your phone. Go ahead, vote. What are you going to do? They don't need poll watchers anymore, right? Well, you guys can't do anything as poll watchers now, right? Your hands are tied. You don't know what to look for. They won't even let you get within 6 feet of stuff. It's absurd, the whole thing is. So, we got tyranny when that happens. We're not going to go there. What we're going to do is we're going to move back to a decentralized election system. We're going to have a county-controlled voter registration database. We're going to move voter validation tabulation at the precinct level. Now, we're not going to get there overnight, but we're going to do, that's where we need to get. So we need to have our eye on this target, and we're going to do everything we can everywhere to move this direction as fast as we can possibly do it. And the only change I want to make, that I want to prove the previous system we had, is we're going to use technology to report at the precinct level. It was a little difficult back then, many years ago, but now we have the technology that even at the precinct level, people can post results. So we're gonna post the results at the precinct level, we're gonna post them on the door, we're gonna put them on the websites, the county can do it as well, everyone will share the precinct level results. It's really important, and we can start doing that now. The other thing we can do right now is the voter registration database. Each county can keep their own set of books for the voter registration database. Don't just trust the state to do it. Keep your own set of books in your county, cross-reference it with the state system. And so we can peel away and get out of the state system, just keep a duplicate set of books, just like Beth did with the poll books. They kept a separate set of books, notebook right next to them. You can do that same thing. I'm sure your county can manage a database of names and addresses. It's really not that complicated. So that right there will give us 100% transparency. And we're gonna put cameras on this stuff, by the way, at the precincts, because that was a big complaint of ballots, is I've heard from people, I don't trust my neighbors to count my vote. So wait, let me get this straight. You don't trust your neighbor, but you trust someone from the Philippines? It's under election, or, under investigation for election fraud, you trust them to count your vote? Really? Idiot? So, put a camera on it, and put everything out there for the citizens. Turn our election officials into overnight heroes by providing full transparency to the election in their county. Can you imagine how amazing the reception of that would be for the citizens? They can be heroes overnight. We need to equip them with what they need in order to provide that level of transparency. And we need to stand behind them. We don't need to attack them. Stand behind them with hand in hand and move to this place. So that will make us free again when we do that. And I do want to talk about, well, here, if you want my contact info, there you go. And I'm happy to work with your county directly and talk to your clerk and find out, what are you guys doing now? What things can we improve to add levels of transparency to what you've got within a law as we move toward this place? There are things you can do right now that I've mentioned in this talk alone that we might be able to implement with almost no work that will help protect your county. So that's my email address and phone number there. And then this is what we need to progress to. Fully transparent, accurate, verifiable, county-managed, nationally cross-referenced voter registration cards at the county, paper poll books, precinct-based hand count election system that is understandable by and accessible by every American citizen. If a 6-year-old can't understand it and a 96-year-old can't understand it, we can't use it. It's got to be simple. Yes, sir.
Did you bring the paper ballot?
I got one here. Yeah.
Can you show it to us?
Yes, I can. And this is it's one of what we created here for doing these testing. So it still has anti-counterfeit measures on it. So what this is, it's got UV marker inside it, little UV fibers, and it's got some other covert things in it. So basically, it stops the
Bring a black light? Did you bring a black light?
I didn't bring one. I know you got one.
Can we show it to them?
Yeah, sure. We can pass it around. Don't tear it up because we do use it in the little demonstration. But pass that around with the black light, and you can see the UV fibers in it. So that's something that could be done to at least stop one of the things people do. Is they could take a ballot and just make a bunch of copies of it. So this is something we can do to provide a little bit of a roadblock, to make it a little bit more difficult for that particular type of fraud. It's really cheap to do it. Yes?
Can you put your contact info up again? I was too slow.
There you go. Hey, you admitted it. Yes, sir.
After he gets that, could you go back to the slide that has the ballot QR code and explain the serial number and the process of how those are serialized?
Let me see how much time we've got, because I think I'm probably about over, and I think that other people will now want to. It's been a long time. I'll see if I squeeze it in now. Okay. So you get it? You got it. Okay. So there we go. Okay. So I worked with Texas First in Addison, and we put together this demonstration to see, could we actually hand count? How quickly can it be done using the fastest method we could find? And what I really wanted was a camera overhead to be able to bring this whole thing and make it transparent. No matter what the method is, I want to bring a level of transparency to our election system that we've never had before. And there's no reason we can't use technology to do that. We've used technology to do everything else in the world. And technology's done a really good job of making the whole system really complex and impossible to understand. and impossible to see, how about we use technology for good? Why don't we use technology to make the system transparent? There's a good idea, there's a good use of it. So everyone can actually see it and verify it themselves. And so I wanted to come up with a very simple camera system to do it. That's just a concept of how we can do it. At that point, we just used iPhones because that was the easiest that we could put together quickly, because it does take a specialized lens. And then this is the kind of view you had. You can actually see the ballots. And these here, these counters, these calculators that were used are just one way to count. And it doesn't matter what you use. Had this idea, right? Because the SOS said that those are a voting system. Okay, well, great. Here you go. Go ahead, SOS. Claim that that's a voting system, a kid's toy. And it's just a way to visually count, keep track of things, and that the camera could see. So it doesn't matter what you use. It could just as easily be, this paper tally sheet. Very simple tally sheet. So what I wanted to do in Addison was actually do the same system, but with just a paper tally sheet instead. We just didn't have time to do it. But the thing is, it doesn't matter what you use. You want to use a legal method, obviously, because you can't count with an illegal method. I do hear a lot of good things about Chapter 65, which is in the code right now. It's a way that counties can actually hand count ballots, already in the code. So if that is the quickest way to get part of the machines out of the equation, I'd say move immediately to that. We can improve it later. But if it's already there in the code, we don't have to fight for it, because we all know how hard it was to get some legislation on this. It was impossible. Something's in the code right now for hand count. Use it. And Tally, Texas is working on that. Look into that. And then tallytexas. Is it .com or .org? Just search Tally, Texas. You'll see it. They've got some videos on there, and they've got some resources for counties, like an election in a box. Here's how you move to Chapter 65 right away. I have not looked it over yet, but I'm going to be trained on it here shortly. I'd say look at it. They might have done a really good job. I think they did. There's a lot of really amazing Texas people working on it. Check that out as well. There's some other processes like Texas First. Beth is going to show you this over here. We don't have any indication that it could be used yet, but that just because it couldn't be used maybe in a Texas election doesn't mean it couldn't be used in something smaller that the state doesn't have control of. So, and that's a really neat way to do it with this, because it's so easy to see those numbers on the camera. So my point on this hand count roadshow that I'm working on is just make the whole thing transparent. I want to help the counties do everything they can to get to the most decentralized, transparent system possible. And then after we have something on camera, here's what we need to do this. We have to do this for our children. One of them is sitting there looking at her phone, not paying attention. Talking to you. Pull that out of your ear. Okay. So I want to ask you a question. Yeah, what grade are you in? 5th grade? Okay, so you're away from this. This is Mrs. Smith in her 6th grade class. I'm talking about. You don't know Mrs. Smith, but I just picked Smith because she's probably a teacher named I had Mrs. Smith in my 6th grade class. Okay, so here's what I would love to be able to do. After every election, I want our kids in 6th through 12th grade to pull up the video from the county website of their precinct selection. And as a class project, I want you guys to learn what an election is, and why elections are important, and why they give us our freedoms. And then you know how to count, right? Yeah, you can count. I bet 5th graders could do this too. So I want you guys to get into groups and pull up the video and watch the adults count the ballots. And I want you guys to sit there and keep track of all those counts and count them up yourself. Just while watching the video. You've watched videos before, right? Oh yeah, you were watching one just now, right? Exactly. So they can do that right there. So they learn how to do it. Plus, we get a free audit. I know this whole child labor laws, right? But beyond that, our kids get an education about our election system. They learn how to recount them. We get a free audit. We can also offer a bounty. How about $100 for every mistake found? The first person that reports every mistake in any video election system. Can you imagine? We have just crowdsourced our audit. And that will still cost us less. Well, but you ask, well, who's going to watch those videos? Well, for $100 per mistake, I think a few people are going to watch that. I think a few people are going to watch it and see how much money they can make. we'll have thousands of people watching this. And people from all over the country could watch it. Other people could watch your county's results and look for mistakes. And would that be a bad thing? No, by all means. Because what happens here still affects people in other parts of the country. Because you guys still vote for federal elections. So we do that through 6th through 12th grade. Our kids get the knowledge, the experience, then their voting age after high school. So darn right they're gonna register to vote because they actually get to really do it now. And they have a full understanding and respect for it. And that argument that, well, we'll never find enough people to work elections. Well, if our kids do it for 6 years, they will be absolute pros at it. So it'll be no problem to find them. They'll be knocking down the door to work those elections. Plus, what if they pay? What if we pay them to do it? Instead of spending millions of dollars and giving to these corporations, how about we take that tax money out of your pocket and put it right back into the same citizen pockets in the county? Would that maybe be a good idea, instead of just giving it to other people? I mean, short of giving it to you, it's probably going to Ukraine somehow anyway. It's just a no-brainer. I don't know how we aren't doing this already, but we need to get there, and we need to work with our teachers to start demanding that our kids start getting this type of education. And if you know anyone that's in any teacher-related positions, let's see if we can get someone to buy in on this and meet the election integrity laws with what the teachers want to get back into their classroom, and let's come together and do this as a team. Okay, so there's me. Take a picture of that one too. Handcountroadshow.org is what I'm doing. I bought an RV and a truck, and I'm driving around right now in the state of Texas. I'm trying to hit 30 to 50 counties in 90 days to give them this talk, to give the instructions, to offer my assistance, to show them how we can fix this problem and what the problem is and why we need to fix it. And ACCFEI.org is some other presentations I've given over the past couple of years all around the country. And there's a QR code, take you to the website. That's what the map looks like as of a few weeks ago of all the people in the country that are asking for this. Now, we've been advertising a lot in Texas, so that's why Texas has a whole bunch of marks there. And so I appreciate the time. I think I went over 45 minutes. I'm really sorry. But I wanted to get this information to you all. And I'm available anytime, so call me. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, what do you guys think? You want to hear more of that? This was his short version.
I tried hard.
He actually, I think they have a 3-hour version and they have a 2-day version. So that means he's got a lot more stuff. So if you're interested in doing this again, we might look at getting a bigger venue that we can house more people in, because I know there are a lot of people. If every one of you went out there and told other people, I'm sure we could get more people to come and visit the next time. Okay, do you want to come up, Beth, and go ahead and start your demo?
Yep, I have 2 things.
Okay.